Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep-end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
Last night, you spent 2 hours deciding what to wear to the party. This morning, it'll take you 2 minutes to list it on Depop and make your money back. Just grab your phone, snap a few photos, and we'll take care of the rest. The sheer dress and platform heels you'll never wear again? There's a birthday girl searching for them right now. Your one and done look is about to pay for your next night out. Or at least the ride home. Your style can make you cash. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
Hello and welcome back to the Dunbar End podcast here on the Hibs Observer. I'm Jack Harris, joined as ever by Hibs Observer editor Patrick McPartlin. Patrick, it feels like we say the same thing most weeks, but a sort of disappointing weekend. A lot of what could have been, but ultimately sort of discipline is the headline and leaves a lot of what could have been.
Yeah, I think when you consider how Hibs played against Celtic at Celtic Park in the last meeting, and even how they've played before, you do think there's a chance that they can maybe bounce back from the two disappointing defeats at Aberdeen and at home to Hearts. And I think this is a chance to kind of kickstart the post-split fixtures if you can kickstart sort of 4 remaining games. And in the end, as you say, it was very much a case of deja vu, another early red card, and then we'll never really know how Hibs could have coped against the Celtic side that didn't look particularly, didn't have to be particularly on top of their game to kind of scrape a 2-1 win.
Get the job done, don't they?
Exactly. And it's something that Hibs haven't been great at doing this season, whereas they were maybe better at it last season. And I think, from probably the first 15 to 20 minutes, to be honest, and up until the red card, I thought Hibs competed quite well. I thought they restricted Celtic, and I thought, you could see there was an obvious game plan there, and it was going well. And then it's just, as with the previous games, it's just I don't even think you call it a moment of madness. It's not. And I know that if somebody gets sent off and everyone says he's not that type of player, then it's like, well, quite clearly he is, because he has just been sent off. But I think we're seeing something a bit similar to the kind of spate of red cards last season, sort of before that sort of 3-3 draw with Aberdeen, and I thought the season kind of turning around, is that it's almost like the players are trying a little bit too hard to be kind of 110%, to be sort of fully committed, fully kind of targeting that sort of 4th place. And if anything, it's having a detrimental effect on how they're playing.
So, I mean, my hypothesis with this is that, there's obviously a lot of talk before the game, fans saying that, they don't necessarily want this to be.
I think it was a little bit more than that. I think it was quite happy to lie down and take a 3 or 4-0 defeat, anything to help the cause.
Anything to help the cause. I'll try to be diplomatic, but you're right. A lot of talk about the sort of what the outcome could mean if Hibs were to go on and win the game, what it would mean if Celtic won the game. And I think everything we heard in the press conferences beforehand was a manager and players who weren't listening to that noise, who were committed on just getting Hibs job done, controlling the controllables, all of the things we hear from them. I mean, that was never going to change. But my feeling is, players are human beings. Like they do go home, they do sort of check the phones, they do see everything that's going on. And I think there were probably question marks over, is that noise going to affect them? Are they going to lie down to Celtic? And at that point, maybe you do overcommit, like you just said. Maybe you do sort of push yourself a little bit harder. And I don't think I agree with David Gray that it's not characteristic of Jamie McGrath, but he does. It's a bit silly. And if you ask the question of the referee that early on, I mean, it's a heavy challenge. I think from my perspective, maybe at red cards a bit harsh, but when the referee goes over to the monitor, like there's only really one outcome when you've committed. You've got I can't remember, was it Alistair Johnson? You've got him on the ankle. You're asking the question and you're putting yourself into hot water there. And I just think that maybe some of that outside noise does kind of convince them that we need to go on, we need to push ourselves, and we need to prove to the support that no, we're not going to do this early on in the game. That's my feeling.
I think that could be part of it, but I think the wider thing at play here is just that determination that after you've been beaten in the derby, when you've had quite a good run at home in that fixture, then there is just this almost like a desire to kind of bounce back. And I think a lot of people kind of expected, given that the run Aberdeen were on, I think a lot of people expected Hibs to go up there and probably take a relatively straightforward 3 points. Not necessarily in terms of sort of winning 4 or 5-0, but just going up there, playing well enough, getting 3 points, heading back down the road. And obviously the early red card has a big impact on that. Same against Hearts with the early red card, followed by the second red card early in the second half. And you are sort of left wondering what might have been. It does just sort of feel that, I mean, it's not, I don't even think it's a discipline problem per se, which sounds ridiculous.
I don't think so either.
Because you talked about 4 red cards in 3 games, including 2 in the same fixture, and you can look at it and say, well, the derby's obviously, it's always sort of heightened tensions. Passlack was clearly quite up for that sort of thing, but it's interesting. I mean, David Gray is never somebody who throws his players under the bus. In fact, when he was talking about the red card for McGrath, he was saying how it was he couldn't really defend it because kind of what you were saying there, it gives the referee or it gives the officials a decision to make. But it also is, it's not a sort of, he's not sort of going in deliberately to, obviously no player does, it's not what they do with injure other players, but it's not characteristic, but it is sort of, it does feel a little bit like that's just kind of the way things are going for Hibs at the moment, that there almost is this, like a bit of desperation, a bit of frustration. It's been an underwhelming season. I mean, you talk about players going on social media. I think given what, we hear at the games and what's getting shouted at the players and things like that, why would you go on social media as a player? Even more so now. And I think
positivity is there.
There's very little. And I just think it's not so much trying to prove a point that they're not going to lie down. Because as David Gray and Joe Newell were saying before the game, they're professionals, they're paid to win games of football. David Gray's job is to win as many games as he possibly can. And Joe Newell's, I thought, was really interesting when he said very few players get to this level if that's their mentality. I mean, we've seen players who, to all intents and purposes, support another club and then they score against them and the celebrations are wild. They're almost over the top. So I don't think that's really anything that comes into it. But I do think there is just that a bit of a desperation to kind of turn things around and to finish the season strongly, because at the moment it looks like things are going to fizzle out. And I think that's why, you're maybe seeing people like Raphael Sallinger, who's, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't really recall any moments this season where he's, never mind made a mistake, but done something where you've thought, oh, that's kind of put the team in jeopardy or whatever.
There's a couple of sort of moments.
But there always is with goalkeepers.
But there always are, and they're really in the minority. It's just, it's not a discipline thing so much as exactly, that, he's just sort of lost his composure in that one split second. And I mean, we were talking about this, that there is that sort of human tendency to go, oh, there's ball coming towards me, don't know what to do, hands. And you sort of freeze frame and it's like, oh no, something's gone wrong here. I don't think that's a lack of discipline. I just think this
explains a lot about your performances at 5-a-sides, but I think, it's not, I think it's that sort of, there is that instinct with Sallinger. We don't need to go over this too much, but I think there is that instinct. He's moving backwards and it's almost like there's a bit of a glitch and he just thinks, I'm in the box, I can touch the ball. And obviously his feet where his hands weren't. And it just feels like one of those things that Hibs haven't had an awful lot of luck this season. And I know what they say, you make your own luck, and Hibs have not done a very good job of making their own luck. And, whether that's sort of VAR decisions going against them, whether it's things like that, whether it's, I think back to the Jamie McGrath challenge on Alistair Johnson. I think it was the last Celtic Hibs game, or the last Hibs Celtic game at Easter Road. Very similar challenge from Colby Donovan and Jordan Abita. That was a yellow card, and that wasn't checked, that wasn't upgraded. So it's just that sort of, it's the interpretation from officials, and then it is just that sort of, whether it's good fortune or whether it's misfortune, and it just feels like one of those where the players are so desperate for things to change, they're so desperate to kind of finish on a high. Europe is still, it's there if they finish 5th. Potentially, it's guaranteed if they finish 4th. And going into last weekend's game, you're looking at it and saying, well, it probably does need to be as many points as possible. You can't rely on other teams doing you a favour. And after Sunday's result, it now very much is having to take care of themselves, but also fervently hoping that other results go their way too. And given the sort of lack of luck earlier in the season, you wouldn't be banking on that. So, there probably is a little bit of frustration. There's probably a little bit of disappointment, maybe a bit of kind of regret that they haven't maybe fulfilled the ambitions. You think back to the performances in both cup competitions, and I think that's more to blame, but that's more kind of explains it than anything about trying desperately to prove that you're not lying down or anything like that. I just think it's one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting that the narrative has now shifted from we've spoken about for the best part of a month now. It's like trying to catch fourth, trying to catch Motherwell. Now there's the we've got to start looking over our shoulders
trying
as
to
well.
Stay fifth, yeah.
Falkirk is now 2 points beneath, and you do say correctly that if Celtic go on and win the Scottish Cup, then fifth will most likely open up a European place. Is it most likely? Is it definite now because of where they finished? I don't know if it's definite.
Yeah, they finish first or second and they win the Scottish Cup. Then that does sort of open the door to Europe for whoever finishes fifth. But I mean, I've even seen some supporters sort of saying, is that something that we really want? Do we want to go through? Because we're going into think an earlier round than last season. So it's an early start, and then there's no kind of guarantee of the parachute to somewhere else. It's just that kind of one chance, and if it goes well, then it's obviously a positive. It's a good thing. If it doesn't, then it's just kind of more of the same, pretty much.
We also learned last season that you can't trust Celtic in the Scottish Cup final when it comes to sort of European qualification. So I doubt many Hibs supporters will want to do that in the first place and sort of rely on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at I think it's something like the number of times that Hibs have finished third or something like that and could have had a helping hand when it came to European qualification and getting that jump up. It hasn't happened for them. So it didn't happen last season. It didn't happen in, I want to say 2021.
I was I think so. 2021, 22.
So it would be no surprise at all if Hibs finished fifth and then Dunfermline won the Scottish Cup based on the luck they've had this season, based on the luck they've had with this kind of system over the past sort of 5 or 6 years. So I don't think it's ever the sort of thing you can rely on anyway. It certainly wouldn't be a target and say, well, fifth is good enough because as you say, you can't rely on other teams, doing you a favour. So that's pretty much why it's been win as many games as possible, try and catch Motherwell until it's mathematically impossible. It obviously still is mathematically possible at the moment, but it's going to need a lot of things falling into place. And I just think it needs an awful lot of things falling into place. And it has been a turbulent season in the Scottish Premiership. I'm perfectly prepared to be surprised, to be proven wrong, but I'd be amazed, to be honest. I mean, the way things are going.
But all of that is to say, they talk about...
It's reverse psychology, by the way.
They talk about 6 pointers. It almost feels like the game against Falkirk on Saturday is like a 9-pointer now. Sort of adding 3 points to Hibs, getting closer to Motherwell, hopefully, but then also keeping Falkirk at bay. I think they can push the gap to 5.
Yeah, but there's also the goal difference question as well, because I haven't checked it this morning, but I think the goal difference that Motherwell have over Hibs is almost as good as another point as well. So that's just another issue to throw into there. So it needs to be, 3 points needs to be the starting point on Saturday, and then
starting 3 points.
Starting 3 points. Starting 3 points and a 6-pointer.
It's lots of points. Another point will be what Hibs do going to the Falkirk Stadium, because there's a lot of selection questions to be asked. Obviously, the likes of, I think, Grant Hanley, Sallinger, and Felix Passlack all coming back into the side from suspensions.
All available, yeah.
Yeah, not all available, not necessary. That's my next question. But also Jamie McGrath being out. So that opens up a question of who do you play in McGrath's position and who then comes back into the side from the 3 that are now available back from suspensions. Yeah, I know you've been writing about one of those questions. Let's ask that one first. Let's ask about McGrath.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I think earlier this season when you looked at, McGrath maybe had a couple of knocks and, Hibs had kind of Europe on the Thursday, games on the Sunday. You had Junior Hoylett who could come into the side and he could kind of play that kind of floating role where he was in between the midfield and the strikers. He was sort of moving out to that left flank. McGrath's done similar, and he started an awful lot of games. And because he's available more often than not, he's not had injury problems. He's not had suspension issues until now. So he's kind of been, it has felt very much like first name on the team sheet type thing. And obviously with Hoylett gone, you're then looking at players who can play in that sort of number 10 role. And Josh Campbell is the obvious one, based on he's played there before. He started there this season. He's played there when McGrath maybe hasn't been fully fit. But it's also, I feel that there's quite a few different options to David Gray, and that given the magnitude of the game, it does feel like one of those where it has to be a particularly attacking team from the start, because they need goals, they need the win, they need the points. And I think that, it's not just a case of saying, something like bring Kai Andrews in and push Miguel Chaiwa further up. I don't think you can play, for example, Barlaser and Newell together. Andrews hasn't played in that position, so he's probably not going to start up there. So it does feel a bit like, as it has with quite a few team selections this season, it does feel a bit about shuffling the players who will start and trying to figure out who can play somewhere else, who can accommodate somebody else being in there. And I mean, we've seen Chaiwa start there. Excuse me, we've seen Chaiwa start there before, but I almost feel you need him a bit further back. You need him for just his sort of like his scrappy nature. I mean, he's been a colossus in these last few games when Hibs have gone down to 10 and 9 men. He's almost been kind of like running the midfield on his all by himself, which is not to take anything away from the other midfielders on the pitch. It's just the ground he covers, the stamina he has, the energy he puts in. Still, he's going into tackles, he's getting across the pitch, he's getting.
You need all those attributes when you're down a man,
and he'll be sort of hugely important come Saturday at Falkirk, and then it's just, you need that right blend in midfield. You need that bit of dig. You need you obviously need that solidity. You need to balance out. Do we have somebody who can play the ball with? Do we have someone who can sort of, I suppose, help out with the defence, but also help up further up the field as well? So I think. I mean, Barlaser obviously dropped out for the Celtic game. I think there's a big question about whether he comes back in or not. I think the last time he didn't start was Celtic at Easter Road. So there is a bit of a strange kind of not starting Barlaser against Celtic at Easter Road.
Might be,
kind of thing going on there. And Joe Newell obviously scores against Celtic. He's somebody who probably... I mean, he knows what it's like. He's been here long enough. He knows what it's like when Hibs are chasing, certain positions at the end of the season. He's been in the team when they haven't finished in the top 6. He's been there when they've been in the top 6 and missed out on the position they've been going for. So, I just wonder whether we're starting to see, Gray sort of bringing him back in and maybe thinking, put Barlaser on the bench, bring him on to sort of gain a bit of control late on in the game. If you keep the same midfield, you've got Chaiwa and Newell in the centre, and then you've got that gap ahead of you. So on the basis that I don't think Gray is going to drastically alter his formation, I think what you're looking at is, do you play Josh Campbell in there? Do you bring him in for a start, or do you do something a little bit left field, although he has done it before? Do you do something like maybe play with 2 10s and a centre forward? So you're almost playing a kind of 3-4-2-1.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, then you've got the option to play Owen Elding deeper. You've got the option to play Dane Scarlett deeper. Both of them have done that role.
And sort of have Shuto as like a focal point up front.
Yeah, or you could have Boyle for his pace. You could even, I mean, it's a fluid front line anyway, but you could even have Boyle behind.
That's what I was going to suggest. Sort of have
behind Boyle behind Scarlett. It feels like the attack has maybe been not. It's been difficult to tell in the last 3 games because they've been up against it because of the red cards. I felt when Suto and Scarlett came on at the weekend, there was a bit about them. Thought they combined quite well. They've not played together all that much. I think combined minutes on the pitch is something like 35, 40, something like that. And they obviously combined for that chance that Shuto put in the side netting. And you're just thinking, do you start with them? Do you have Boyle off the bench just for that sort of pace in behind later on when the games are coming stretched? There are a lot of options rather than just saying, well, Josh Campbell can go in there. And I don't think it's going to be as straightforward as just saying Boyle and Elding start up front, Josh Campbell in the 10. I think there's probably a bit more to it. There's also, I don't know how the plastic pitch affects team selection either. There's maybe some players who are better suited to that sort of surface.
I was going to say,
into it.
Do you think there's any chance that Josh Mulligan's involved? But I think that would be one of those considerations that you just don't want to play the risk.
Exactly.
In terms of aggravating that injury.
It would be like a massive risk that you don't need to take. And yeah, I think the potential for like a recurrence or for something happening, I just do not think you wouldn't take the risk at all. So I don't think that comes into it. It's fair enough to raise it, but yeah, I don't think you risk that. And in terms of with the other positions, I think Jordan Smith hasn't played at Falkirk this season. Sallinger's played in the previous 2 games.
I think there's a good argument for Felix Passlack to come back into the side as well. I mean, you talk about wanting that attacking team. I don't think that's a slight on the work that Kanayo Megwa's done in his absence at all, but just having that sort of outlet down the wing as well, and then being that sort of attack minded.
Yeah, and you look at the work that Warren O'Hora has done. You look at Miguel Chaiwa sort of dropping into that right back area as well, and it allows Passlack to kind of push forward to get into the final third without worrying about the space behind him. And I think, you're right to point out, like, Kanayo Megwa didn't do very much, if anything, wrong when he came off the bench against Hearts. He didn't do anything wrong against Celtic from the start, but they're different players for different situations. And I feel that it's not a case of this player's better because he can play that position and the other one can't. It's a case of, I think Megwa was actually very well suited for a game against the likes of Celtic, where there's going to be more defending, you're going to have less of the ball. But then for a game like this, you maybe want somebody like Passlack who can get up the line, who can hopefully put some crosses in. Nicky Cadden doing the same on the other side.
You just don't want Falkirk to have as much control as they did back in that sort of 4-1 defeat. I can't remember when it was. It feels like it was yesterday, but also feels like it was about 3 years ago. It's been one of those kind of seasons, hasn't it?
And I think, I don't think there's any point in changing the defence. I mean, Grant Hanley had probably a 90 minutes to forget the last time at Falkirk. He scored that, I think, call it an own goal or a deflection, but he was heavily involved in Falkirk's fourth goal. He's been sent off twice, obviously, this season.
And Rocky's been really good.
Rocky's been good. Rocky's
really
been
good
consistent
in these last 2 games.
Just has a good understanding with Warren O'Hora. So I don't think you make changes for the sake of it. I think for me the big question mark is, do you bring Sallinger back in for his height? Because you look at the likes of Liam Henderson, Barney Stewart, guys who are good in the air, and that's assuming they both play. I'm not up to speed with Falkirk's injury or sort of fitness issues at the moment, but I think the sort of biggest sort of question mark is who starts in goal, because you could make an argument for Jordan Smith keeping the gloves. You could make an argument for Sallinger coming back in. I think the other ones are a bit more clear cut, but I think the goalkeeper and then just how they cope with the absence of McGrath are the sort of big posers for me. Yeah,
lots of questions to consider. I'm sure we'll get some answers at the press conference very soon. If you want to hear from that, then do follow us on our social media channels here on YouTube and on the website as well at www.hibsobserver.co.uk. Is it .co.uk?
It's .co.uk.
.co.uk. There you go. www.hibsobserver.co.uk. There's probably a link somewhere down there. So I think I've just wasted 20 seconds of everybody's time. I won't waste any more. We will see you very soon and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks very much for watching.